Welcome, good evening, you wonderful dice and all buttons. I am Lunar D8, and this is part 4 of Let's Read Warhammer 40,000 or 40K. This is the Age of the Imperium. The rising tide of horrors that crashes against humanity's bastions in the 41st millennium has done so for thousands of years. After the Age of Darkness came a period of hardship as Xenos invaders and piratical raiders preyed upon the weakened Imperium. Though repulsed time and time again, their attacks have never ceased. Throughout Millennium 32, humanity struggled not only to recover from what it had lost, but to retain its grip upon that which it still held. Invasions and separatist uprisings took their toll as the High Lords strove to defend their scattered domains. The last loyal Primarchs were lost during this turbulent era. Jagatai Khan and the White Scars and Leman Russ of the Space Wolves vanished into the stars while hunting their foes, while Vulcan of the Salamanders and Korux of the Raven Guard disappeared under more mysterious circumstances. Rogel Dorn of the Imperial Fist was said to have fallen in battle with the traitor legions, while his brother Robot Golomin of the Ultramarines was laid low by Fulgrim, Demon Primarch of the Emperor's Children. Gilman was spirited away from the battle and encased in a shimmering stasis field and preserved him in a long sleep throughout the millennia to come. Through Millennium 33 to Millennium 34, the Adeptus Terra secured an ever more ironclad grip on power. Many of their astropathic sanctums that transmit messages even today were established during that era, as were a great number of the fortress worlds and deep space naval bases that still watch over the subsectors of Imperial space. Over the same period, the Imperial Creed has become sanctioned religion of the Emperor's realm. The mailed fists of bureaucracy and religion took a tight hold of mankind's reins, and for a time they endured, even prospered. Then came the era of Nova Terra and Terragon. For over 900 years, the Imperium was split in two after the Council of Nova Terra claimed sovereign rule of the entire Segmentum Pacificus, also known as the Time of Two Emperors. The turbulent period of Imperial history saw countless civil wars, uprisings, trade disputes. Documentation of this era suggests that many such disturbances had their roots in heretical subversion, though the heavy redaction by the Ordo Malleus makes it very hard to say for certain. A legacy of mistrust and prejudice lingered long after the Imperium's reunification, such that even in Millennium 41, the Segmentum Pacificus is still the most under-resourced in the Imperium. What followed in Millennium 36 has become known as the Age of Apostasy, where it saw devastating religious schisms threaten the very survival of the Imperium. Gouge Van Dyer's Reign of Blood very nearly brought the Imperium to its knees, and saw the worst internecine imperial conflict since the Age of Darkness. It was followed by the horrors of the Plague of Unbelief, the galaxy-wide uprising of corrupt demigods that saw the followers of the Dark Gods wreak havoc. In the wake of such heresy and strife, the era from Millennium 37 to Millennium 41 became known as the Age of Redemption. Crusade after crusade was launched by Imperial forces, many of them penitent in nature and oath-sworn to reclaim those worlds lost to infighting, heretical overthrow, or Xenos invasion in prior centuries. The Imperium knew many victories during this era, yet the zealous fervor that drove mankind's armies onward had scant regard for the sustainability of the worlds it won. The Manchurian conquest was arguably the last and greatest of these crusades, where they saw 1,000 worlds claimed by the Imperium in just 7 years. Yet the subsequent collapse of the rebellion and heresy of those same worlds was characteristic of the years that followed. A period known as the Waning, in which the overextended and martially exhausted Imperium saw control begin to slip from its grasp. The rule of imperial law became ever more draconian in response, and the importance of doom both incessant and relentless. The prescient foretold great ripples in the warp, like the water disturbed by many, some colossal with unseen menace. Darkness was coming to the Emperor's realm. Quiet for a moment. It is the quiet in the arming chamber. Just the slow beat of blood in the warrior's his ears. Dead men's blood. His breath holds the taste of incense, of machine oil, of static. The world within his closed eyes is still, at peace. It cannot last. It must not last. But he waits. Around him the serfs stand, bending under the weight of armored plates. Skull-faced cherubs glide on false swings, clutching parchments that tell of his oaths and deeds. Censor servitors swing smoke throughout the air. All wait for him to speak, and by speaking, to begin the ritual. Readjust how I'm sitting. But he will not speak yet. Every human serf in the chamber with him knows that this is how the moment passes, and the rest know better than to break the silence. Somewhere far off beyond the hull of the ship he stands in, across the cold dark of space, throughout the skin of atmosphere, down through the wrappings of smoke and cloud, a world burns in the fires of war. The warrior can feel the world's bleeding and the tactical data he has absorbed. Can't see the numbers of casualties as bodies blown apart and lying in the ruins of their homes. Can feel the banners of the survivors tremble in their hands, dead souls in the dying, life in the living. It will be here as it has been in all the other places of swords that the warrior has known in his life of battle. Deployment from atmosphere, the rush of the fall, G-force shaking through him as the drop pod drags fire through the sky. The voices of his brothers rising in prayer. Impact, deployment, the explosion of doors opening like the petals of an iron flower. Deluge of bullets splashing like rain on ceramite. The thump of his second heart kicking into waking. Blood pumping to muscle. Dead men's hearts. Dead men's blood. Threat and target runes spinning in his helm display. Rounds thumping from his gun. Bodies bursting and him going forward with his brothers, no words, no commands, just the precision of warriors forged as one. Thought and instinct unified, metal teeth spitting, blood and pulped meat into the air, and the kick and grip in his hands as the chainsword pulls free of meat and bone, proud blue, splattered red. All as it will be, all as it must be. He remembers then. He remembers two boys running across a crest of rock beneath a blue sky. They are brothers by birth, two souls made alike. Sweat is pouring from them, air gasping from their mouths. The precipice opens at their feet, and they stop, eyes plunging down the drop between the weights, walls of rock. Behind them, the cries of the beast rise on the wind. One of them turns and looks. The beasts are gray, shadows the dusty dry ground, spines and scales, far surging in the bounds of the crags, yellow eyes, teeth white with pink mouths. Jump, his brother shouts, and yanks him towards the precipice, muscles bunching as the beasts bound closer. They leap. In the arming chamber, the warrior feels the scars across his hands. He remembers holding to the razor edge, the far side of the precipice. He hears the beast roar from the opposite side, and beneath he sees his brother fall, hands still reaching to grip the rock. Brother lost and the warrior never reborn. The warrior raises his head. Begin, he says. Chants rise, serfs and robes move forward. The first plates of armor touch the warrior's body. Interface sockets lock into plugs into his spine. Needle pains shoot along his nerves. He feels the sleeping weight of the armor as it settles over him. Behind his eyes he sees green lenses of apothecary looking down on him. White armor slashed with dripping red. Blades and saws on chrome limbs. Darting into the open cavity of his chest, he is drowning in his own blood, kept alive only by the thump and beat of machines. A spider hand of metal swings in the side above him. A mass of gray flesh sits in his grasp. Blood and culture fluid drip from it. Dead men's flesh, taken from the fallow to remake the living. He watches as the metal hand lowers the gene seed into his chest. A gift from thousands of generations of warriors. They promise he too shall die in war, and not by time's sight. The armor wakes around him. Power flows into servos and muscle fibers. It becomes a warmth in his chest. Its strength a song in his limbs. He does not feel majestic or terrifying, though he is both those things. He feels whole again, returning to the only home he has ever known. A surf lifts the warrior's helm above his head. The man is old, and the warrior can hear the crackle of failing life as he speaks. Mechanicals of fire and the prayers of war. The helm lowers over the warrior's head. There is a moment of darkness, and the world's clamor is silenced again. Then the helm wakes, targeting data, threat markers, and the readouts spin in his sight. Ammunition counts rise in glowing numbers as his hand closes around the grip of his weapon. The serfs and servitors stand back, silent again. The warrior is still a demigod of war, an angel of death in the blue of summer skies, a furious intent made flesh and skinned in armor. From here he will go to the life he was remade for. It will be his last act, or just the next step on the road that shall end far from here. That does not matter. He is a warrior, and death is his only truth. And if he falls, another will stand where he stands, and feel the beat of dead men's blood in their veins. He steps forward. Hope everyone had a wonderful, wonderful day. Bye.